before I get into the approach, there's a couple things about, in my mind, about working business to business that may be similar to residential. It may be different. So I'm just going to go over, this is my philosophy and framework about business prospecting. And if you want to use it residentially, feel free to as well. But so the first thing that you want to do is, like, when you look at your week and you look at your day, you want to set a non-negotiable start time for your day. Okay? And Todd talks about this a lot as business hours. You know, like if you ran a store, you know, it says open at 9 o'clock. Well, then you're there ready to serve people at 9 o'clock. So, and I think that's a critical thing. It's more important than deciding how many hours you're going to work is literally what time are you going to be with your first prospect. And so, you know, look at your week ahead and plan a time to start. And maybe it's different on Mondays than it is on Tuesdays. That's fine. I mean, there's, you know, people will say all day, oh, my system works better than yours, whatever. The honest truth is everybody's system will work as long as you have a system. And, you know, if your system is, hey, I start every day at 2 p.m., fine, you know, but make sure that you're there at 2 p.m., you know. So, and if you're working businesses, I highly discourage you from picking 2 p.m. as your start time. But so, you know, I think Woody Allen said it 90% of success is just showing up, and it's really true in our business. So the second thing that you want to do is have a non-negotiable number of approaches that you're going to make before you quit prospecting that day. Okay, so in my group for new agents or new territory, even if I'm an experienced agent opening a new territory, for those people, you know, I recommend 30 approaches a day, no matter what. So go full steam for blocks of 10 approaches at a time, and then only take breaks between those blocks. So, I mean, just keep it really simple. You know, I leave my house. I know I'm going to be at my first business by 8 o'clock, and, you know, I'm going to go full bore until I've talked to 10 people. And after I've done 10 people, man, I can hit up a Starbucks or grab a Red Bull or chew a stick of gum or whatever, okay? But I'm not going to do anything until I talk to my first 10 people. And then when I'm done with my Starbucks, I'm going to go talk to another 10 people, right? And so that's, and I'm kind of I have a little bit of an ADD problem, so like the breaking it down into blocks of 10 is really helpful to me. And some people think that's a lot, but honestly, like it's not that much if you're brand new, because you're not going to be sitting down with that many people in the very beginning, because you're not going to be very good at what I'm about to talk about. So you'll have plenty of time, I promise, to practice on 30 people. And then as you get better and better, as you break your territory in, you know, you can start dialing that back, you know, once you're consistently hitting your goals. But if you let yourself get below, you know, even an experienced person, if you let yourself get below 10 approaches in a day, you're going to lose momentum, and I don't care who you are. So just consider that. So if you only take those two pieces of advice, set a non-negotiable start time and have a non-negotiable number of approaches, you'll change your entire business in 3 weeks. And I've seen that happen, okay? Okay, so then moving beyond the basics then, third, you want to get focused about the kind of businesses that you want to approach, okay? And this is kind of some advanced sales. So like consider the territory that you're working. If you're working in a small little 3,000 or 4,000 person town, you don't have to be all that selective, because you know, all the business owners know each other no matter what industry they're in. You know, they probably all go to church together, play softball together, have their kids in the same school or whatever, okay? But if you're working a larger area, you know, like Jack, if you're working in Phoenix, or like myself, I work in Austin, Todd, you know, you're working in Nashville. I mean, you want to get focused about the kind of businesses you want to approach. So my opinion is, while every business can and probably should have our coverage and are absolutely worth approaching when you're referred to them, not every business down the street is a good candidate for us to make a cold call on. So let me elaborate. So if I'm going to if I'm going to solely work off referrals, I don't really care who it is. I mean, it could be a single mom, it could be an attorney, it could be the mayor, whatever, right? But if I'm going to cold call, which is approaching somebody with little to no information or connection with them, I want to make that cold call as easy as possible on myself. Not because I'm lazy, but because I am lazy, but I like to be effective too. So think about what the low-hanging fruit is in our business for cold calling, okay? So they probably share some characteristics. So in a business scenario, it's a business where the owner still works on site and is depended on for day-to-day decisions, right? If that owner isn't there, that business starts to disintegrate after a few days. Okay, that business that kind of business is amazing. And I mean, think about the kind of businesses that is. Any business where the guy's name is on the door, right? Like Joe's Trucking or Larry's Roofing or, whatever, Charlotte's Hair Salon. I mean, think about it. If Charlotte's not there, is anybody cutting hair, right? So some kind of manual labor would be the second point, working with tools, climbing ladders, driving trucks, anything where they're actually doing real work, not selling insurance kind of work, right? Third is something where they're growing, right? They're making a good margin. They're mindful of their tax exposure. They're going to make more money this year than they did last year. That's bothering them in terms of keeping their trajectory going. Their wife's got addicted to a bunch of new shoes, and she wants to buy more new shoes next year. That kind of business is what you want, not some business where the guy's been there for 30 years and, he's just dealing with this few handful of loyal clients, and that's all he wants to do, okay? And then fourth is an open door, right? They're used to people who don't work there coming in periodically, right? So if you walk into an architectural firm, for example, it's just very unusual for people off the street to walk into the architectural firm. And so everybody's going to look at you like you're from outer space, versus if I walk into a auto mechanic shop or a tax preparer's office or, anything in a strip center or anything like that. I mean, people walk in the door all the time. And so the response you're going to get is more, can I help you, as if you're a potential customer, than what the hell are you doing here, right? So that's the third point. So get focused about the kind of business you want to approach. Fourth point would be to organize a target list of those kind of businesses. And you don't want to spend your time doing this during the day. You want to spend your evening, is what I tell my people, is to get organized about, okay, tomorrow, who are the 30 businesses that you're going to approach, right? We have several different databases that we use, Reference USA, A to Z databases, Hoover's. I mean, you can use Google. Google's a great database. To just say, auto mechanics near me, for example, and you'll come up with, all you need to call on tomorrow, right? But walking into a business where you've got them on a list and you can show them, hey, here are the guys I'm calling on today, it elevates your approach confidence to a level that's far, far higher than just, hey, you were next, So, and then every time that you leave a business, look around and see if there are any businesses that look like they also might fit into that profile we just discussed, right? So no matter what database you use, they don't have everything. And there's real magic in saying that, hey, I just finished meeting with Joe across the street. I was on my way back to the office, and I didn't even know you guys were here. Well, how long have you guys been here? And boom, you can have a conversation with them. So, and then the last point is just follow up. So it's rare to have, one call closes in business to business. So no matter how great your approach is, you may or may not choose to demo that person right now. And even if you do demo them, you may or may not be able to close them on the spot. So you want to have a very, very solid follow-up process. And in fact, that's really what separates the men from the boys in business to business, is that you need to know how to follow up with people and how to take someone down our sales cycle without necessarily giving away, all of your candy. Your first or second meeting with them, making sure that you're with the decision maker and they're prepped to make a decision before you go for the close. So that is my prep, okay, for talking about the approach. So talking about this approach here for a second, the key is when you're delivering the 9-point approach I gave you. Yeah.
Are you gonna cover follow up as well?
Yeah, I can. Sure.
Yeah, I think that would be good because I know that's something that I've struggled with in the B2B market and stuff, and so a lot of the folks that are on this list, we've got some that do B2B, but primarily we do residential, and then we call on a lot of referrals, in the B2B and stuff. So if some of them are looking to carve out a couple of days to do B2B, I think the follow up would be great for all of us. So.
Okay, well, so let me just get to follow up then. So the follow up is the big mistake that people make in following up with businesses is that they give a full demo, okay, to someone who is not really a buyer. Okay, So if you stop doing that, your follow-up would be a lot easier, okay? So what do I mean by that? So a real buyer is someone who has need, they have money, okay, and they are a decision maker, right? They can make a decision on the product, okay? So sometimes I walk into the business, I meet the business owner, we sit down, we talk. He's like, yeah, I make all the decisions around here. I can decide what I want to do, and I demo him, and he buys, okay? But most of the time, that's not the way it works. Most of the time, the business owner is the guy that I need to talk to. I'm going to sit down with him, but I need to get him hooked, and then he's probably going to say, well, gosh, man, my wife really needs to be involved in this, or whatever the situation may be, right? And so I want to find that out. And Todd, it's nothing magical. It's just what we do even in a home, right? I want to find that, but in a business, I can be a lot more upfront about it, right? So, and so I just want to find that out and make sure that I'm not spilling all my guts to this guy. So what I've done in my mind is I've kind of moved a couple things around in my presentation book to where there's more of a high level discussion that I can have with somebody, which by what I mean by that for the rest of you guys is just like, the statistics, the pie chart, the claims, just kind of how the policy works in real life, right? But not necessarily any of the details about like the first occurrence benefit and the daily hospitalization and all that stuff, okay? So, but the return of premium and all that other kind of stuff, I can discuss all of that up front with anybody, right? So, from a conceptual level, I mean, I'll talk to anybody. They don't have to be a buyer. I mean, I'll sit there and show you what I do, right? But then there has to be a point where you say, okay, Charlie, and this is what I usually say right before I'm going to get into the benefits. This is my statement that I use to kind of feel them out, is to say, well, Charlie, that's the long part of what I show people. Okay, the short part is just, okay, how do we figure out how we add these numbers up? Like you see this claim here, we paid this person $160,000. How did they decide to pay this person $160,000 and this person only $45,000, right? So I can show you kind of how that works, okay? And then the other part of it is what your rate would be. So on this return to premium page, this person hypothetically paid in 20 grand, maybe somebody else paid in 5 grand, maybe somebody else paid in 40 grand. How do we figure out how much, you can put into the product, if you were going to apply for it, okay? And I can go through that with you, Charlie, but honestly, you're a busy guy. I am too. I'd hate to go through all of that just to have to come back and do paperwork later if you weren't able to make a decision on it. I mean, does your wife need to be here? Do you have just somebody who else helps you make these decisions, right? And asking it as if you expect there to be somebody, right? Not like, so in residential, a lot of times we'll say, oh, I'm sure you can make a decision about this, right? More hoping for the positive, oh yeah, I can. But in business, like I've kind of switched that around to be like, I expect there to be somebody else, right? And the reason for that is because I'd much rather, because with a business owner too, I'm not going to sit there and pitch them an $80 policy. I'm going to sit there and pitch them a package of everything at an elite level where I know the price is going to be $300, $400, $500 a month if I can get it, right? And so I want to make sure that if somebody else needs to be here, they're here, because I can't tell you how bad it sucks. Well, to write, $5,000 or $6,000 worth of annual premium on somebody and then have their wife, give it the kibosh later because they made a decision to quit, right? So,
yep.
with that in mind, like I kind of go for the, who else needs to be here, and if there's nobody, I go, okay, so really, so if I showed you this and you loved it, and you decided to apply for it, your wife wouldn't go nuts or try to hunt me down and, have somebody assassinate me or anything. And just to make sure. Okay. And then so if I see that there's a need for me to come back, right, then the follow-up's really easy because I haven't given away everything, right? It's just, here's some bullet points on what we do. Here's our website. What's a good time for me to get back here with your wife? What can I email you in the meantime to where your wife can read it over? And then why don't we set a meeting for tomorrow afternoon at 2:00? Can she be here by whatever the time is, right? And so it keeps, as long as I'm keeping that last point in my pocket, the follow-up's super easy, right? Where the follow-up spirals out of control is when I've given everybody all the details of everything and the prices, and they go, okay, great, let me look this over, and I'll get back to you, right? At that
Yeah.
point, it's really hard to get it back under control.
Okay, great. Okay, so but basically same type of deal, with residential. Just kind of hitting some higher points and building up the need, and then obviously building rapport, and then covering that buying atmosphere, but kind of switching it around a little bit with expecting them to say, well, I need to talk to my financial advisor, my wife, or my partner, or whatever
Right.
it might be. That type of deal. Yeah. Okay.
Right. And I want them to say that. Hey, I want to talk to my financial advisor. Hey, you should. Absolutely. Right?
Yeah.
Who are they? Great. I'd love to meet with them myself, just because, they can probably refer me to a ton of people, regardless of whether you and I do business together. Right? So, and keeping your status on that high level with them, so that they're not, you don't want them to whip it out of their back pocket as an objection at the end. You want to get that out.
Yeah,
and
of
then
course.
just having, I guess the other thing is just being comfortable with a 2 or 3 step sales process, right? Like, so my first meeting with them might just be an approach and run through my pitch, and them say, okay, well, I don't have time to talk about this right now, but why don't you come back and talk to me tomorrow? And I'll say, okay, great. Does anybody else need to be involved in this? No, I handle everything myself. Okay, perfect. And then I'll come back and sit down with them and do the cancer story and the claims and whatever, the return of premium. But then I'll still try to blow it up if their wife's not there. Well, hey, doesn't she need to be here to look at this kind of stuff? Oh, she doesn't. Okay, right. And then coming back that third time to sit down with the decision makers. Sometimes it takes 3 times. And just being okay with that. It's not a big deal. I'd much rather meet with the guy 3 times on the way to making a nice $5,000 or $6,000 sale than to meet with him once and then chase my tail for 3 weeks. So.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Awesome.
What was the other thing you were asking, like, what are some objections? So, yeah, you guys can read the approach on your own. I know it's 10 o'clock. You probably want to get off. But, some of the objections are going to be, we already have all the insurance we need, or, hey, I already have somebody that does all my insurance for me, or, why don't you just email me some information, or, well, is this Aflac, or maybe I'm busy, just send me an email, that kind of thing. So I think I already did that. So just being ready for those, if they say we already have all the insurance we need, or we already have an insurance person, right? That's super easy to combat. It's just I don't even deal with it. I'm like, oh, I'm sure you've got plenty of insurance. What I do is really different, and that's already written into the approach. And just blow it off. If they say something like, oh, we already have somebody that does the insurance for us, and if it's like the secretary, one of the fun things that I started saying is oh, okay, are you actually the insurance agent yourself for the business? Just I don't want to take away your business. Oh, no, it's not you. Okay, perfect. Well, let me tell you what I do. Just email me some information. Is super easy as well. It's just like, sure, absolutely. What's your email address? Okay, so first of all, say yes and get their email before you say anything. Okay, because you want that email address. But yeah, great. Give me your email. And then after they get the email and you check it, just say, okay, great. Well, what would you like me to send you? And they're not going to know because you haven't told them anything. And so I'll say, look, I get it. Okay, so I could send you, I've got hundreds of pages of information online and all kinds of stuff. But why don't I just give you the 20-second pitch of what I do, and then you can just throw me out of here if it's not for you, and you can save us both some time. How does that sound? Right? And then they'll kind of laugh and go, okay, yeah, why don't you do that? Right? So it's real easy to deal with that. And then like Aflac, the Aflac objection. The most critical thing about the Aflac objection is because a lot of times they'll say, is it Aflac? Right? Now, if they tell you we already have Aflac, that's something else. But if they say, is it Aflac, it's before you say yes or no, or it's kind of like that, or you get your money back, or anything like that. Ask them first if they have it, right? So they'll say, oh, is this Aflac? And I'll say, oh, do you guys already have Aflac? And then that'll give me the information I need. Because if they have it versus if they don't have it, then I'll go 2 different directions with that. If they don't have it, I'll say, oh, why not? And then they'll say, well, we had it before, but we hated it, or our agent was a jerk, or nobody really was interested, or whatever. Then I can deal with that, right? But if they say, yes, we already have it, I say, oh, great. Is it super popular? How long have you had it? Is your agent a friend of yours, right? Because the answers to those questions are going to help me decide how to squeeze it in as well. So, those are the main objections. It's not nothing too hard to handle if you've been doing it for a minute.
Awesome, man. And yeah, we usually, we allot anywhere between 30 to 60 minutes to go for our conference call, so you're not under the gun on time or anything along those lines.
Okay. Well, I guess I was going to say the last thing that I was going to say about this is a lot of times the biggest nervousness that people have is, okay, let's say that I go do this approach and it works, and the guy says, sure, come on in and sit down. Okay, now what do I do? Right? And so it's real easy, is just don't go through the benefits of what you did. Just go through your intro, your cancer stories, your pyramid or pie chart, whatever you're using, and some claims. And then that should take you 8 to 10 minutes to do, and you'll have a really good hook set in the guy. If he's down with it, he's going to be like, wow, this looks really good. I need to look into this. Or he's going to be like, it's not for me, And then you just want to kind of pull the rug out from under him a little bit and say, well, I'd love to show you the rest of it, but I'm sure you have some other people to help you make these decisions. Like who else needs to be involved in this conversation?
Hey, Eric, this is Jack.
Yeah, Jack.
I have a quick question. How often how many times do you follow up with a business owner? Say, for example, you've gone there, you've kind of tried to get to the person, the decision maker, and you get to the second in command. They say they're gonna, they'll let you know, throw them some information. Okay, cool, you've agreed on what you're gonna send them, and then you don't get any response back. A week goes by, you follow up again, nothing. So you stop back in and you talk to the secretary, say, for example, and again, same thing. You can't get to the person. They're super, super busy. How many times do you keep trying, and how far do you go to try and get to that decision maker? Do you kind of just let it go and, scratch it off your list and keep going, or how do you handle that?
Well, the key thing is, am I able to get into their inbox, right? So, because I think the difference is going to determine. So, first of all, if I'm talking to the second in command or the secretary or whoever, and they say, hey, they're not available, but you can send them some information, right? So, great. Give me their email address, and then once I get their email address, so what would be a good idea to send them in your opinion? Okay, and make sure that you know what they think that person would like to see. Sometimes they have no idea, and they're just blowing you off, Jack. So sometimes it's just like, oh, I don't know, man, just whatever you usually send people. And I go, well, I usually just send people my homepage and then let them figure it out. Do you think that? Let me tell you what I do real quick, okay? And then you tell me whether it's even worth my time in trying to get in touch with them. How does that sound? Okay. So just always remember to come back with something like that. Don't be so easy to get the email and send them some information and come back and check on us, because you'll get stuck wasting a ton of time, right? So typically the admin or the second in command or whoever knows the person well enough to know whether you even have a shot. And what you're really looking for is them telling you, look, they hate salespeople. They're not going to listen to you. They would never take a meeting with you, right? And just say, okay, perfect, right? Stop trying to get in front of that guy and instead see if you can get this guy, right, to sell you to the guy you need to get to. Does that make sense? So
yeah.
So right, because sometimes you can that middle person that's blocking you there, you can flip them, right? But if you can't flip them and the boss is just the kind of person that's never going to listen to you, then you're just wasting your time. So the first thing I want to do is in the initial approach, right? Or even like, let's say I've fallen into this death spiral, I can still get back to the person that I know I was talking to. Let's say it's the receptionist. Margaret, she's been working there for 20 years, right? And look, Margaret, would you say you know Charlie like super, super well? Yeah. Do you think he's ever going to really take a meeting with me? No, probably not. Okay. Well, listen, before I cross you off the list completely, which I'm okay doing, but I work with so many businesses that are just like yours. Could I tell you kind of more in detail what I do exactly? And if you think it's a good idea, maybe you can go talk to them. If you don't, then just tell me no, and I'll just cross you off the list forever. How's that sound? Right? And see if you can't get a demo in on her, right? Because the product sells itself. If somebody is willing to look at it, right, most of the time they're like, wow, that's really cool, right? So if you can at least like flip through a pie chart and a claim, and really those two things with Margaret here, right, you might be able to get her hooked enough to go and flip Charlie for you, right? But otherwise, I don't really. I mean, like, I don't really worry about it too much. I have a real simple, like, 3-step process that I do with most business owners. If I'm not, like, if Margaret's not helpful and I'm in the guy's inbox or voicemail, then I'm gonna leave 3 voicemails. I'm gonna send 3 emails in between those, and my last email is gonna be like, hey, you'll never hear from me again if you don't respond. And that's it. I mean, there's just too many other businesses to worry about this one guy. But sometimes you need to use that middle person as an ally. So
I appreciate that. Thanks, Eric.
Yep.
Eric, this is Rob. How you doing?
Hey, Rob. Hey, good.
The pie chart thing. I mean, I looked through your 9 boxes of your approach. I've done a lot of B2B before in the past, that type of thing. What's the pie chart thing? Am I missing something?
Oh, the pie chart thing is inside your presentation. You may have it as a pyramid where it's like the direct and indirect costs.
Oh, all right. So you're just talking about direct and indirect costs, the pie chart there. Okay, got it. I thought it was something different for businesses that you were doing. Okay.
No, that's it. I mean, the thing is, if you think about it, Rob, like if I'm knocking on doors, even right, if I'm in a neighborhood, I would much rather talk to somebody who's self-employed than or let's say somebody who's a school teacher at the school, right? I would much rather run into that because the school teacher at the school, I have to educate her on why her health insurance isn't going to pay for everything, and I have to educate her on why that little combined policy that she has isn't going to cut it, right? I mean, because she thinks she's already covered, right? And it's okay, I can do that. It's just more work, right? But with a self-employed guy, I mean, he already knows that his health insurance sucks. He already knows he's paying too much money and getting too little in return, right? Or he already knows that he doesn't have health insurance and he's paying a penalty to go around without insurance, right? I mean, that's half of the guys out there. They don't even have insurance because I'm not going to spend $700. Yeah. So, that indirect cost page is just is awesome in a business world. So